big wave washed it all away. The apocalypse and the judgment day, I would testify, looking God in the eye, saying I got her back, we're on the same track. And if we're moving, then we're moving together. And if we're standing still, then it's still forever. It's a little step in the right direction. Couldn't see it from space, I'm right next to you. Whatever you decide to do, I've got your back, we're on the same track. And if we're moving, then we're moving together. And if we're standing still, then it's still forever. Drinking houses, ruined cities, draw such scenes. Probably killed the accomplice, also set fire where I've been. I want the names, ones in sunlight. Boy, you'll burst down from the barrel. We got our weapons unfastened. Get the horses and rode away. And I will live to fight another day. I stole the secrets, jack of diamonds, suits and science, signs and dice. Play a piano out of shackles. You look lonely, you seem nice. I spoke the truth, so long silence. Voice was strong, under guard. What escaped? Nothing noble. You know the line, put the bottle away. And I will live to fight another day. Trail out into the canyon, dead ends and body bags. The paperwork and all of the clippings, the wind was sweet, so blew it away. And I will live to fight another day. And I will live flying things built around building wings made out of whatever you are. I don't know if the words are rolling right out the door of my mouth. Is my mouth to bite off the tongue where the words have begun to remain written down in where you are? What a place we have arrived. I couldn't find it again if I tried. The small geography of an anniversary. I don't know if the time was time to save all the years all at once in a single day to begin again, made to be built within words that were made up where we were. I don't know if we made the right mistake starting over and over, the bumps and breaks in the bones and hearts, saving the broken parts, making up whatever we were. What a place we have arrived. I couldn't find it again if I tried. The small geography of an anniversary. We could stay, or we could run away. I like to run in the early sun when it's electric, body moving. I didn't expect that I would feel like this, but we are changing all around us like mountains. You love mountains. Statues of heroes, true weirdos, from the places where we come from. There are pictures on your bedroom wall. They are fixtures to light you up, but setting traps around the yard so we can fall, lose it all and rise again. All the battles that happened here, sabers rattled for years and years, but we are changing all around us. Over mountains, you love mountains. We are changing. We are changing. We are changing. We are changing. It's a little step in the right direction. Couldn't see it from space. I'm right next to you. Whatever you decide to do, I've got your back. We're on the same track. In the universe, you're a molecule. In my eyes, you're a great and big deal. Bigger than the moon. You're the only tune I hear. I've got your back, we're on the same track. And if we're moving, then we're moving together. And if we're standing still, then it's still forever. I'm not a psychic, I'm not a mind reader. I don't know when a ship's gonna be here. If it never comes in, I would do it all again. I've got your back, we're on the same track. And if a big wave washed it all away, the apocalypse and the judgment day, I would testify, looking God in the eye, saying I got her back, we're on the same track. And if we're moving, then we're moving together. And if we're standing still, then it's still forever. It's a little step in the right direction. Couldn't see it from space. I'm right next to you. Whatever you decide to do, I've got your back, we're on the same track. And if we're moving, then we're moving together. And if we're standing still, then it's still forever.
And that's exactly how we get started, everybody. Welcome, one and all, to 20 Question Tuesdays. I'm your old pal, Jeff Plankenhorn, the guy who owes you money from college. What can I say? It's really, really nice to be here, and as always, we have Matt the Electrician on the show. Well, not as always. You always get me, but you're stuck with me. Those who don't know, 20 Question Tuesdays started early on in the pandemic. Basically, I turned my camera on, I started doing a workshop, people started showing up from all over, musicians, managers and publicity people and songwriters and guitar shredders, and it was just really really beautiful. A couple of weeks later, I just started doing it, a little bit here and there. A couple weeks later, from Austin Music TV, Sheila Steele said, "Would you like to put this on the air?" I said, "Great." I got one of those apps so I can get to all the different platforms, and there's a little picture of a person with a plus sign, and I was like, "Ooh, I can invite guests that's going to be way more interesting than me just doing it every single week." And I think my first guest was Michael O'Connor, and then we had Jamie Harris and Scrappy Judd. Then it was Bill Kirchin, then it was Ruthie Foster, then it was Ray Wiley, and it's just snowballed, and it's just been beautiful. I've been doing it every single week, literally every single week, I think since maybe April or May of 2020, if you can believe that. And I really, really, really love it. So thanks for keeping it going. I split the tips with my guest every week, and just want to make sure that my guest gets, I don't know, a half a tank of gas, maybe some groceries, maybe gets to take their wife out. I don't know, whatever. It's a really, really nice thing. And thank you for keeping the wheels rolling that way. I really appreciate it. Couple of quick housekeeping things. I have a brand new EP out. If you go to plank.herenow.com, and I put it there, then that's basically all things digital. Bandcamp, Spotify, Apple Music, all those things. Also, if you listen online to me or Matt or anyone else, like, share, subscribe. Don't just put it on repeat. That stuff doesn't work anymore. You gotta show that, put it on a playlist, share it with your other friends, put your music next to somebody super famous. All those kind of things really, really help draw people to those sites to hear more music. But the best thing you can do is probably go to Bandcamp and just pay for music, which is usually pay what you want, and that's a beautiful thing too. And then I'm actually playing some shows this week here on Vancouver Island. This is actually not a joke. Plank.wtf is my website. And you can go there and check shows, all those kind of things. Oh, thank you, Joseph. Great new album, he says. Right on, man. Appreciate you. Appreciate that very, very much. Shows here on Vancouver Island. Let's see. With band, my Canadian band, which I think was what I need to start calling them, on Friday night at Duncan for the festival, 39 Days of July. Sunday for the Islands Folk Fest with Doug Cox, who's going to be my guest next week on this show. Incredibly cool steel player from and dobro and slide player from here on the island, and that many of you know in Texas. And then next week, Qualicum Falls with Doug as well. Then I'm coming to Texas, so Texas people, as long as we stay safe and I can get across the border, I got a big tour planned. So go there and check out the shows, etc., etc., etc. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Did I say that? I don't know what that means. Lee, but we'll go with it. No, let's see. Friday is Duncan, 39 Days of July. Sunday is the one in Islands Folk Fest. The next Friday after that is Qualicum Falls. All the other shows, all the other dates, just go, and those included website. That's where to go. Enough of that. I don't want to talk about me anymore. That's right. That's my website, plank.wtf. Tom Pearson's got questions. Oh, I'm scared about that. Scared. Terrified. Without further ado, let me get the right caption up here. Matt The Electrician. Matt, can you tell what an incredibly professional show this is?
Yes, I can.
You must be intimidated by the fact that my presentation and my ability. First of all, I'm not in the plank tank. I'm not in the office right now like I usually am. Well, that's weird.
Are we expecting someone else?
No, we're not. That's pretty fun. I have had surprise guests call in before.
Yeah.
But that's not happening today. So anyway, I'm back at the house because I'm having internet problems at the office. So I had to do my live stream here last night, and I also had to do, this. So here we are.
Yeah.
But I'm fairly sufficiently coffeeed because I just went to the credit union here in Campbell River and was opening a new business account for my business on Vancouver Island, and it took a little longer than I thought. So I'm a little shaken.
Yeah, banks will do that.
Will you calm me down?
Um, I mean, I'm not usually I'm not the calming effect. I don't think.
You have a calming effect. You used to have a calming effect when we were on the road when you were opening up for Bob Schneider. You were generally,
Well,
you kept it cool.
in that group, I certainly.
Touche. Matt, what's going on in your world right now, man? You're at home, you're in Austin?
I am. I'm at home in Austin. Yeah, been here for a while. Like I guess, like most of us in one place. But getting ready to leave in about a week.
You're gonna head out towards California, correct me if I'm wrong?
You are correct. That's where I'm going to California and Oregon primarily.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love the PNW, and I'm in it most of the
Yeah.
time. For
Oh
those who
man.
don't know, I'm usually in Austin, Texas, but my wife and I come up here for the summers, and the summer became all of COVID, and here
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of like the balance of the home base shifts. Right now, the balance of the home base is here. The other home base is in Austin. It just kind of shifts sometimes.
Yeah.
And, that's it. You're going to see our friend Casey Turner, who I really, really, that guy's a great promoter of music and just kind of a cool cat. I always love seeing him when I'm on the road or at Folk Alliance and things like that. You and I met at Folk Alliance, did we not?
That sounds well. I think we met at the Cheatham Street warehouse.
Really?
Well, we met there, but not really because we
Oh.
didn't. We met at Folk Alliance in. I feel like I figured this out, and it was actually 2003 in
Oh,
Nashville.
okay. Okay, then that was a different one. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, we
That's
met.
one where we did some hanging around and we did some
We hung out.
stairwells.
We hung out with Susan Gibson
Yeah. Sarah
and
Elizabeth
Sarah
Campbell.
Elizabeth Campbell and Chuck Brodsky
Yeah.
and Southpaw
Michael
Jones.
O'Connor.
Michael O'Connor was there. Um,
Slade even made it to the stairwells. We were playing songs in the stairwells. That was kind of like the cool. That was the hip place to hang out for various reasons. Um,
yeah,
we
yeah,
would hang out there and play songs.
that was great. That was and that was my first year at Folk Alliance, and I
No
really
way.
yeah, and I didn't like it. I was very upset about the whole thing. Excuse me. I I didn't like the vibe, and I had the whole thing just seemed expensive and kind of a bad experience. And then the last night, Southpaw and I were wandering around, and we ran into y'all, and I think we knew Susan a little bit, and that was kind of our intro. And then she was like, "Come on," and took us to Sarah Elizabeth's room, and we
Yeah.
hooked up with you and Michael, and yeah, it was great. It was wonderful.
It
Wonderful
seems
night.
like you do kind of need. Well, you might need. Only once do you need that. Like at Folk Alliance, because once you have that and you go back, I could be years and not go back. Last year, that it was the last year we had it, I went with Scrappy. And it was funny. It was like, I don't know, maybe I want to go to Folk Alliance this year. And he was like, I'll go. I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, it'd be great. I got a new album. And so we went and we didn't side. We just played our own stuff and we really kind of stayed away from the hubbub. And we
Yeah.
had a blast,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Because I feel like at Folk Alliance, once you're in the know, like it used to be like I remember Jimmy LaFave used to get like all of his gigs for the year
Yeah.
because he was people don't know that for someone who didn't talk on stage, he was amazingly social.
Yeah.
Super social cat and great at it. So if he liked you, you'd tag along with him and you'd get a ton of gigs. You get a ton of connections and meet people and the word of mouth thing is still alive and well and beautiful. Of course, I also have the connection with Lewis Myers for another year that I went and had an incredible time. But what we're talking about is the Folk Alliance Conference, and you're actually on the board now.
Yeah, I've been on the board for 6 years. This will be my last year, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been a good experience.
Yeah, it's been great. I didn't know initially. I wasn't sure it was something I wanted to do. It felt, I don't know. It felt, I had some people approach me and ask me to do it years ago. And I thought, oh, I don't want to do that. That feels like retiring. That feels like, like once I enter that realm,
And I'm one of those.
yeah. Yeah. and but they really stuck with it and talked me into it, and I'm really glad I did it. It's just it feels good to kind of be an advocate in the community.
Those are the things that we really dig about it, right? The bringing people together, the getting to meet people you never would. I mean, for crying out loud, Scrappy and I went and saw Mavis Staples last time get interviewed,
Yeah.
and I mean, I'm sorry, but that's worth the entire admission for me. It was
Yeah.
spectacular and pretty. And I've been lucky enough to see her on multiple occasions and even play with her once when I was playing with Ruthie Foster, which was terrifying and wonderful at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's my name drop. Lee likes to mark whenever I name drop. I got
That's a good one.
2 right there.
That was a good
Bam.
one.
I mean,
Yeah.
unless you count Scrappy, then I got 3. Let's go. Let's dive into the questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk because you and I are the kind of people. Well, because you and I are the kind of people like if we sit down and we have a cup of coffee, it's going to be 2-3 hours, and so I'm
This is
going to
true.
really
This
try
is happening.
hard because we have lots of stuff to talk about, and lots of similar interests, and lots of very varied interests. I like this question a lot. It comes from our good friend Kate Howard. Kate Howard asks, "How would Matt characterize his relationship with the Austin Public Library?"
My relationship with the Austin Public Library.
Yes.
Tentative, I suppose. I don't have.
What do we mean by that?
I mean, I enjoy the Austin Public Library. I used to take my kids there a lot because they like the library.
Okay, so it was more a Eusta.
Yeah, and the new library, which is beautiful, has this open staircase up through the middle that I'm sure you've seen, and I am kind of afraid of heights when I get up. In some cases where
I
I
did
don't.
not know this about you as long as we've known each other.
Yeah, and so I've had some pretty like I don't like being up and not feeling like I have something to hold on to, and so I'm not crazy about the new library, even though it's beautiful. Excuse me.
They didn't have you in mind when the architect designed it.
No, they never called me. I was assuming they would get in touch before they broke ground on that, but didn't happen.
Well, we do have interesting talks often on 20 Question Tuesdays about things that musicians read, and often I like to say they are books without pictures. And sorry, it's a Bull Durham joke, but I love it.
I like it.
But a lot of times, our friend Doctari will ask, "Hey, what are you reading right now?"
Yeah.
I'm curious what you're reading right now.
That is a fantastic question.
Are you a 3 reader? Or are you like whatever's like I go through phases where I have certain things that I can't read all in one sitting.
Mm-hmm.
So I keep them out and keep a bookmark and kind of come back to it. And then I have other things that I read on a regular basis, like this is what I'm into right now.
Yeah, sometimes I do that. Sometimes I'll read multiple things. Lately, I've been kind of focusing on one thing at a time, and I literally just finished this guy,
Last Chance to... Oh, cool.
the Ricky Lee Jones memoir autobiography, and it was very enjoyable. And I finished that, and then I read. I'm into graphic novels, comic books, that sort of thing. And I had one issue of a book called Unwritten, and I read that. And I literally haven't read anything in like the last 3 days because I'm in between books.
3 days. Yeah, see, that's a reader. If you say I haven't read anything in the last 3 days, then you're probably an avid reader because that seems like a long time. You were actually the person also, you were singing one of your songs opening for Bob Schneider on the Road, and I was playing at Bob's band, and there was a line in your song, "I am reading the novels of Haruki Murakami." And or is that the line? What is the line?
It was now that you said it, it blew it out of my head. But
because it's in the middle of the song.
It's Junichiro Tanizaki who I was reading.
But you said Haruki Murakami in the song.
That is possible. I'm not good at pinpointing my own lyrics out of.
You're kidding me! I thought it was because that's where I found out about Haruki Murakami. And then all of a sudden, like I remember, like I don't know, maybe a month later, I asked Bruce Hughes, and he was like, "Oh yeah, one of the greatest writers, you know."
Yeah.
And
It's
and
possible. It's possible that I mentioned Murakami to you in conversation post you hearing
so
that
I'm
song.
wrong about this. I always thought it was because it was in this song.
It's possible it is, and I'm just not remembering it. I'm terrible at that. But I
Fantastic.
I certainly knew about Murakami first. Maybe I can't remember. But Junichiro Tanizaki, yeah,
Yeah, write that now.
he's
On
an
my radar.
older Japanese author. He wrote in the like 40s, 50s. He wrote in the 50s about like the 30s and the 40s, or
Tanizaki.
excuse me, yeah, or sometimes prior to that. Tanizaki.
Okay. Nice thing about Japanese is that the kanji and stuff, it's very phonetic.
Yeah,
Only
super
only
familiar.
5 vowels. Lots of consonants.
Yeah,
It's very hard to get a ts and a ts, but yes, great. Well, then that's some interesting stuff as well. I myself am reading The Secret of the Golden Flower. I've never read that before, and it's pretty hip. It's pretty hip. If you're into Lao Tzu and you're into the I Ching, it's kind of like a cool offshoot on meditation. And anybody whose yapper goes as much as mine needs to read as much as they can about meditation and practice it as much as
oh
possible
nice,
because it really really helps. Larry King
cool.
says nobody asked, but I'm reading Brandy Carlisle's book. Very cool. I'm glad you mentioned it because then we can say it, and people like it. Yeah, man. I'm constantly. I love getting hip to stuff because I'll be on the road and I'll finish a book and. I'm a Kindle guy too. Like I love paper books, but I also love Kindle because I can
Yeah,
just finish and boom, start another one when I'm on the road. Just download it.
yeah, totally.
Um, there's a really, really nice comment I would like to share
Sure.
from Justin Forgy. Let's see if I
Hmm.
can just put this up because this is really, really nice. Jeff, you met my son over a year ago and created a fan for life. The time you gave to a 12-year-old was incredible. Matt, the time you give a 41-year-old is special too. Justin, we both
Ah,
thank you.
Justin.
That is really, 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 really incredibly nice. And why the heck not? I don't know about you, man, but I get uh, those who get above their raisin. I don't have much time for them. So, okay, Dan Jason asks a fun question, which I'm sure you never get.
Okay.
Can you guess?
It has something to do with the my name and the electrician status.
I did not prep Matt at all, Dan. I didn't prep him. I didn't prep him. Dan Jason, was he really an electrician, and for how long?
I was for about 10 years. I was licensed for about 10 years. I worked full time for a contractor for 7 or 8 years, and then I did a couple years of kind of freelance working for various contractors, builders, side work, that sort of thing.
Now, was this in Texas or was this more in California?
This was all in Texas.
Oh, God. Please tell me that you didn't have to do very many attics.
Oh, I did a lot of attics. That was
Attics in Nashville, because I had a buddy who was a great guitar player, played with John Hartford. Ding.
uh
And
nice.
he was an electrician. And I'm a huge John Hartford fan. Rest his weary soul.
Yeah.
Um, uh, when I would hear about the climbing through the attic, because it's not 105 when you get into the attic.
It's like 140, 130, 140.
How do you move in that?
As fast
Just
as you can.
thick, fast as you can. Yeah, fast as you can. How do you move? How do you breathe? I think that's a gig. There's two things. I also know a lot of people who do post hole digging, and I think that's another one that I'm like, thank God I learned how to play guitar.
I mean, to be fair, I knew how to play the guitar, and I still did a lot of post hole digging and a lot of crawling in attics. But the post hole digging that I did in the post hole digging that I did in Texas was that we did a lot of underground services
Yeah.
for the house. So where your service is on the outside of your house, there were a lot of the neighborhoods we did that service that through the underground instead of the overhead. And excuse me. And so we were tasked with digging a 2-foot down hole that was around a foot and a half around, and then the city or the electrical provider would come in and with a rock saw,
Yeah.
they would dig a trench over to the house, but we had to leave them just the 90 at the bottom of this pipe.
I'm
And
telling you, man, it's one of the hardest things. I hate post hole digging
well,
more
in
than myself.
most of the places we were digging, you could get maybe 6 inches down before you hit solid rock.
Yeah.
So it was just jackhammering for just hours at a time, just trading back and forth. Two guys, like, you know,
You do it for a while, you do it for a while, you do it for a while, and because there's nothing else that's going to do it, you know?
yeah.
Here
I
we
mean,
dig down and we put cement.
it's good. You know, it's good. I loved that job. You know, it was
Really?
incredibly hard work. We worked 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, and you were offered the seventh usually. Every Saturday you'd come in and they go, "Do you want to work Sunday?" And so it was just whether or not you had other things to do.
Or the gumption.
Yeah, and you know, and I was trying to do music at the same time, but uh, but it was tough to kind of keep both going.
Difficult to keep your music habit going. We have our good friend Adrian Quintero. Graphic novels are a staple in my reading habits, and it shows, man, in your artwork. Adrian did that bitchin' poster for my Back to Texas, as well as a lot of the artwork for my albums.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's got some really, really great influences that kind of come through in a hip way. Joseph says, I'm reading Mary Gaucher's book, Saved by a Song. Just
Nice.
saw Mary and Jamie at Woody Fest. Oh, I miss Woody Fest. Someday they'll ask me again. I'm waiting on that. There's a fishing. I just fished
Nice. Good
for
job.
that. Yeah, yeah, that was good. I love this question. Justin again. Where does nature and music collide and how? I'm going to let you go with that. Nature and music. Is that something that you think about, homie?
Oh yeah, there's a
City
lot
boy?
of there's certainly a lot of nature in my music. And my, you know, my I was certainly raised around a lot of nature, but we never we lived
It was,
rural.
you were from like Humboldt County?
No, I mean I did live there for a bit, but we lived
Okay.
in southern Oregon and then
Ah,
parts of northern California, but
okay.
always in near always pretty close proximity to either the forest or the beach or both.
Yeah.
And then my wife is a pretty hardcore backpacker, and her whole family is hardcore backpacking. So I never did the camping or the backpacking when I was a kid, but always just loved the ocean and loved the loved being in the woods. And so that that totally informs it informs my playing, and also but also I think my writing. Like you know, when I was in high school, when I started writing songs, we lived in a house that was just on the edge of this partially protected forest area, and so that was where I kind of learned to write and play music, was like getting my guitar after school, and my friends and I would go into the woods.
Mm.
You know, and some of that's you know, to get away from the prying eyes of
Oh,
parents and
sure, right?
you know, do the things you're not supposed to do. But also we would just spend hours in there, like playing songs and singing and doing it in that setting. It's just it, you know, it creates this it creates a connection between kind of how you imagine music as you move along. Like it has
Mm.
this, it is in my head, it's always joined with this kind of serenity and this connection to kind of the outdoors. So
Man, I love that. My connection to nature and such really, really didn't happen until I got married. I was very much a city boy, steel town, you know, this kind of thing. And
yeah.
it wasn't an idea for me to like go on a walk in the woods. And later on, my wife was actually the one that uh, uh, introduced me to the concept of, I think it's Shinrin Roku,
Mhm.
which is the Japanese will actually,
Mm. Forest bathing.
yeah, forest bath, and they'll a doctor will prescribe you have to go take a forest bath. This
Mhm.
is my prescription because is going on. So for a guy like me, it's been really really great. And seeing things through her eyes became kind of weird too, and became lyrics for certain songs when she would be walking around along. and we'd be walking somewhere, and she'd grab a leaf, and she'd go, "Oh, this is cool. Smell this. It smells like bananas." And I'd be like, "How do you know that?" You know, and
Mhm.
knowing all because she's a horticulturalist,
Right.
this whole other art form of living things. Not to mention the fact that I was never anybody who enjoyed walking out and grabbing peas from the garden that just grew
Mm.
up out of the ground, and having a summer garden and a winter garden and this and this and this and that became really really crazy for me too. For so nature and music have collided in a lot of different ways.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
That was my whole childhood was so many gardens. It was
is that right?
my mom was a big gardener, so we just had enormous. I there's a line in one song about our gardens when I was a kid, but
Yes.
from Animal Boy.
Animal
But
Boy? Yeah, it's
yeah,
Animal Boy.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, my mom had these just prodigious gardens that took up like, half an acre, and yeah, as a kid, that was just how you would get up and go outside and just eat. You'd eat snap peas and raspberries and just whatever you kind of found, you would eat.
It's
So
almost blackberry season here, and they're coming up. And also, one last thing, my wife, when we were first here, I saw people like walking by and picking blackberries with a bucket, and I said, "Honey, um, they're taking our blackberries." And she goes, "Those aren't ours." I said, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Babe, they're everywhere, and blackberries here are pretty insane where
well,
we
and
live."
on the West Coast they're invasive. Like they're
Oh
they're
yeah.
huge. They're huge in the Pacific Northwest, but they are not from there.
Mm.
But they're still the thing that I miss the most. From that area, and growing up, it was just those and blueberries were absolutely everywhere. And when I was little, we lived in a part of Oregon. We had friends in the Rogue River Valley, and we used to go up there. And if you live up there, not to pick the ones on the road.
Right.
You go away from the road because those
I
are
know.
usually, yeah, they're covered with exhaust, and you don't
And
want them.
pee.
Yeah,
Somebody
yeah,
peed there.
exactly. So you go back in, but we used to. There was this whole area near the Rogue River and this one creek, East Evans Creek, near where our friends lived. And the kids, when we would go up there for like a weekend or whatever in the summer, they would send us kids with baskets, and we would go just like load up on blackberries and then come back, and we had the hand crank ice cream
Yeah.
maker, and we would
Yeah.
make blackberry ice cream.
Yeah.
And it's still like I haven't done dairy in 30 years, and I don't even eat ice cream, but that still is like one of my most amazing taste memories from when I was a
You
kid.
remember it vividly. We
Just
we do. I'm
yeah,
not afraid of the dairy, although I probably should be at this point. And we'll just go out and pick blackberries 10 feet from the house, put them
yeah,
on top of ice cream. Bam, that's dessert.
yeah,
Done. You know.
yeah.
Same thing with so many things like crumbles and of course it goes great with salmon. So
Mm,
which is something you wouldn't expect, but everything up here is pretty salmon related.
totally.
Okay, so we're about halfway through already. And a couple things. Thanks to Austin Music TV. Also, thanks to Austin City Jams, who also puts this online for the people who aren't on socials. Thank you, Kirby, for that. I know a lot of people watch there. We're on with Matt the Electrician. And just because I want people to find out where to find stuff, things that you can do Instagram, Twitter. I said Twitter because I like to say Twitter. But to find all things Matt and to follow and find out about new music and stuff like that. Speaking of that, I do want to say I know that you have some news, but I also know that it's one of those things that you almost can't talk about. So that being the case, because I know this is the thing nowadays, it's like stay tuned, but I can't say this, and this because something's coming out. I know it has to do with new music.
Yeah.
And I know it's something that, if you're following on Matt's Instagram or you're at the website and you go to all of the things, can we at least say like maybe in the next week?
Well, I mean, here's
You
the
know?
thing. Everybody who follows me knows that I have a record coming out later this year.
There we go.
So that we know, and in about a week from now, there'll be another super exciting thing, at least that I'm
Okay.
excited about.
I believe it's no. I think it's super exciting. In fact, I think it might be so exciting. Like, I might be a little terrified.
Yeah, well, I go through most of my life terrified.
You
So
do, you do. That's good. That's good. That's good. You know, as Gary Shandling says, or used to say, life is short, but not short enough.
wow, that's a that's a hard thing to say for Gary Shandling. Um,
Just
how do you
kidding.
feel? How do you feel about Gary? Do you like Gary Shandling?
Oh, you know what, man? I was a really big fan,
Hmm.
but I didn't watch the shows. And
Mm,
then I saw the movie that Judd Apatow made on him,
yeah,
and I got to peek inside the man a little bit, and I thought it was really, really well done. And I saw that he had a lot of the similar demons
hmm,
as I do,
yeah,
and a lot of similar demons, and so I felt kin to him in some ways. And now when I go back and I see him pop in on something, I don't know, like an Iron Man movie, or you see him
yeah,
somewhere, and you're like, or you watch that old thing with him and Tom Petty that's just priceless.
hmm,
I don't know if you've ever seen that, but
yeah,
they're just hanging out and
yeah.
talking, and I think that's where I got that quote. Um, yeah, I grew in my love for him. I didn't have it
Mhm.
like when things were happening.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, my memories of him from when I was a kid, was he would guest host the Carson show, and he and Joan Rivers, and I can't remember like if it was due to something else or it was grudge related, but my mom really didn't like Joan Rivers or Gary Shandling,
Oh,
and and I think her reaction was kind of uh, you know it was that they were both kind of schlocky. They weren't like cool
they were
comedy.
hacks.
I mean, they were Vegas people, and perhaps unapologetically.
That
And
can
I
rub
don't
off
know. I
from
don't know if oh,
from a
sorry.
parental figure. That can rub off.
Well, and I don't know if it's right or wrong. It's interesting because there's a lot of things that I loved that were cool. There were cool
Yeah.
things because my parents liked them, and my mom in particular really, like, there were certain films, there was certain music. She was one of these people that was like never, no Wayne Newton, no Engelbert Humperdinck, none of that, right?
We're gonna have to
um
talk about this later, but we're gonna go on.
well, like, her favorite musician was Leonard Cohen. Like, you can't get any cooler
Whoa,
than that,
what?
right? Yeah, you can't get any
He
cooler than.
wasn't really a musician. He was a poet.
Well, I mean, whatever, but like, it was still just,
That's kind of cool.
that was her favorite thing. And what's interesting now, what I've realized for myself is that probably some of that was a little too dogmatic, and whether my mom really felt that way or I just, when you're a kid, you can hear one person say one thing and it sticks with you, and that
Oh yeah.
person might not feel that strongly, but you remember it. So I don't really know how strong she felt about those
But that
things.
was your impression.
That was my impression. And then when Joan Rivers passed away, and then when Gary Shandling passed away, in my head, I thought, where is this reinvention coming from? Like, touting these people as, like, just the monarchs of comedy. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, they were hacky.
Mm.
Um, but I watched that Apatow thing too, and I was like, and I will say with both of them, I didn't come fully around to embracing them as what maybe some other people kind of.
Icons.
Yeah, I still don't believe that, but I think it's a great evolution in kind of watching how you can just get a little more info and get brought closer towards the middle where you go, oh, they were fine.
Yeah.
Like, they were totally fine. And in fact, everybody's fine. And Gary Shandling is neither the best comedian that ever lived nor the worst. But what we do know is that he was Judd Apatow's favorite. And so if
Right.
you like Judd Apatow and you like his filmmaking and the way he frames things, he can bring you into, like, his own enjoyment of this other person.
Sure, and maybe his genesis or whatever as well. And the other thing that we often, not to be too conspiratorial about it, but once you see behind the curtain, once you see the man behind the curtain, you
Yeah.
start finding out things like, Well, if somebody owns Gary Shandling's this, and that,
Yeah.
and they get so and so to make a move, I'm not saying this is the case with Judd and Gary,
Yeah.
but you can reframe someone after they're dead and make a ton of money off of them, and it's gross. And we see
Yeah.
it a lot with music, and we
Sure.
especially see it a lot in the Austin community. It's like, where were you when they were alive? It
Right.
drives me insane,
Yeah,
you
totally.
know, when I see people touting this person or this person. I'm like, you know, I was hanging out with that cat, and maybe they knew you. You,
Well, that's, you
you
know,
know, or you're making money off them now, and that's, I
right.
think sometimes it's a reframing of an artist past posthumously that is kind of gross.
Well,
Um,
there's always what's the famous, there's a famous story about everybody saying they were at a place. And it's not Janis Joplin, but it's something like that, where they're like, oh, I saw Stevie Ray at the Steamboat or whatever. And then,
yeah,
and then, you know, you talk to his brother or something. He's like, look, there were 10 people there. So there can't possibly have been the
could have been all of them.
10,000 that said they were there. And, you know, to me, like, I would rather, it feels good as a fan and as a musician when you're there. When
Oh,
you're there and you see somebody and you're like, this is magical. I'm going to tell my kids about this.
yeah,
Um, that is a great feeling. And even if it goes on to not be, even if that person does not become the next big thing, you still have it in your head like that was a magical moment, because sometimes there's just magical moments.
yeah.
But but years, and when I first moved to Austin in '96, I was at my friend Dave's house, and I met Dave at an open mic, and I was there with my friend Anna Eggy, who was my
Yeah.
roommate, or not my roommate, but like my duplex mate, housemate at the time. And I had also met Anna at the Flipnotics open mic, and Anna and I were at Dave's house to like drink whiskey and play guitars. So that's what we were doing.
That was
And
the thing.
yeah, and he had some other people coming over, and then they were going to all go to the Cactus to see some songwriter. And so we were like, yeah, maybe we'll go. Maybe we'll go to the Cactus. I don't know. But then, you know, you get in, you start drinking whiskey, and then you're playing guitars. And I was like, I'm having a great time here with Anna, and there were a few other people playing guitars. And my buddy Dave was like, hey, we're going to go to the Cactus. And I was like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go anywhere. And this was early 97, probably late 96, early 97.
What'd you miss?
So he's like, but man, you got it. Towns Van Zant's playing. And I go, Towns who? I don't know who the hell you're talking about.
I
I
knew it
could,
was coming.
I could absolutely care less. I'm playing guitars. And so we didn't go. And it was his last show at the Cactus before he passed away. And so, you know, on the one hand, obviously, yeah, smooth move, dude. Like, you probably should have, you know, gone to see Towns. But I still stand by, like, I was having a good time playing music with my friends. And
I
and the thing is, if Towns was in that position, he would not have gone to see Towns at the
No
Cactus.
way. No way he would have gone to see Towns. There's no way. And I never knew him either, so
Yeah.
I shouldn't be so presumptuous to say that. I don't know, but I think you're right. I think you're right, and I do think that we get this thing put on us as musicians and performers too. Like, if we're gonna miss this, then we miss the thing, and oh my gosh, this didn't happen. And I mean, I've seen it happen, you know, with my career, where somebody says, oh yeah, here's two people who could do that, Jeff Plankenhorn and X, and then they get to him first, and then I go, oh crap, well, I missed that, you know, spot to get my song on Billions, on show, whatever, you
Yeah.
know. And I go, yeah, you know, and I've had a lot of near misses, enough that I don't care,
Yeah.
because it's just like I can't. And I've been around to see things that I never would have seen, that I've been so lucky that I'm like, yeah, most people go their whole life and never catch something like that, you know. And also,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm really in this position myself. I don't know how you feel about this, and I'm curious. There's a really great question you should ask yourself if you want to go into music, and that is, do I want to be famous or do I want to be happy? And they
Right.
don't always coincide. And I know a lot of people who play music for a living that are happy. I don't know a lot of famous people who play music that are happy. Very, very few. Dave Marsh was asking. There's another ding, but he's a writer, so.
Sure.
A friend of mine was like, "Hey, I got this job offer that's booking this incredible club, this incredible folk club," and he's like, "But I don't know if I want to do it. You know, I play music. You know, maybe that's gonna mess with things." And he was like, "How many people do you know make their living playing music?" And he was like, "Oh, I don't know, 20, 25 that I know really, really well." He goes, "How many of them are happy?" You know, and he was like, "Oh, you know," and he was right, you know, and it's like. I really feel like there's a point where you go, what's going to make me happy? You know, or do I really feel like changing all of this, stuff to fit into a mold so that it's mass producible, or do I just go, oh my gosh, I get to do this for a living? And
Oh yeah. I mean, that's always been my approach. Like it's like anybody, it's you're excited when positive things happen. And the positive things sometimes are, financial. And
sure.
and so for me it's less about like this idea of fame and more just the idea that like, oh, this is another step. If I get a song in a TV show or a
I
commercial,
know.
it's
That's
just
a good
another
one.
step to paying off my car.
I know.
It just pays my mortgage. Like I
Yeah.
don't care if more people know who I am. It
Mm,
doesn't. I've never totally understood that, but I think also there is a bit, I was as a kid, I was drawn to that kind of whatever the counterculture was. And of course there were times where I was drawn to exactly what the mainstream was as well. But but this idea that there were people making music that nobody knew about and nobody cared about, and the people kept doing it. And again, the complexity of how people are able to do that, and it often involves, they have money or they have connections or whatever it is to keep them going. But some people just keep pushing and just keep
yeah.
digging.
And
And the
live on
more
less.
right, and the more you do it, Danny Barnes, who writes a great several
Bad
great.
Rivers plays with Robert Earl, plays with, he's on Matthew's label?
He was for some of his
He was
records.
for a minute. Okay, so anyway, just to let people know, Danny Barnes,
Yeah,
great, great.
he has his own label that's cassette only. That's like metal and like
So
weird.
cool.
And he's debatably he's one of the best banjo players alive right now.
Mm.
And he writes these blogs. I think you can usually find him online. He's written these lists. And another local guy here in Austin, a drummer, Thor Harris,
Yeah,
has they have
more on Twitter.
very like parallel things they've written, and basically they're like
Like
these
mindsets.
they're like these top 10 or top 20 things. And so Thor's is like how to be a great human being or how to be a human being. And Danny's is how to be how to be a professional musician. But one of his that's the best is how to be in someone else, how to be in a band,
The
how to be a
Sideman one. I've sent so many people to that.
it's so great. But so Danny has so many of these pearls of wisdom, and I don't think it's in one of his lists, but I think I read it on his Twitter at one point. But he's and it was such a great reminder, and it was at a time when I really, really needed it. And it just said, if you're playing in a bar and there's 10 people there and you start playing and all 10 people leave, it does not necessarily mean you're doing something wrong.
Wow.
And I know
That's
that
so good.
like that sets aside all the business, it sets aside all the money. I know it's complicated. I know it's not as simple as just saying like you can get away with doing that. But here's the thing, like sometimes I put on John Zorn, who I love,
Yeah.
who aside from
Free jazz, kind of psycho acid music,
right,
wild
and
stuff.
some of it is just unlistenable.
Oh yeah.
And they say
No,
that
that's beautiful.
as much as I like to listen to it.
Assad
But
is pretty incredible.
yeah, Masada's great. Cobra is rough and
Yeah. I've
uh,
played Cobra.
oh my god.
Anyway,
Yeah,
long
with
story.
the,
We'll
like
talk about
smiley
that.
faces and trees and fire.
Gorilla
And,
musician.
yep. And the thing is, like that music's not for everybody. And if I'm listening to it, it doesn't mean I'm cooler or better or whatever. It's just something in my brain digs it, and it's pretty noisy and it's pretty rough. And if most of the people who hear it don't like it, it doesn't mean he's doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
He still can do what he wants to do. And Danny writing that down in the context of like all of us trying to kind of, meld into this folk Americana, whatever
Sure.
world,
Fit
because
in a
because that's
bin.
the music we make. That's what
Hmm.
we make. Like I don't make. Maybe it would be simpler if I was drawing up musical charts with flames and Ultraman and pencil sharpeners, and that was the notation, and we were all screaming like,
Right.
because then you're maybe saying I pre-accept that 90% of the people that hear this are going to hate it.
Yeah.
There is a freedom to
Or you
that.
take the other side where there's a complete formula and I'm putting it in a formula because I want certain people to like it, which is
Sure,
a thing. And also,
absolutely.
I'm sorry, guys, but it works. It's like people know how to market music, people know how to use the formulas, and I've also kind of grown okay with that too. You
Well, and it's
know?
also just, what do you want to do? What
Yeah.
do you what do you want to
What do
make?
you want to make?
And at some point, as a younger musician, I was making things that I liked, but I was also making things that primarily other people liked.
Oh, yeah.
And I liked it, but maybe it wasn't my favorite thing. And it took me 5 or 6 records to make a record where I finally realized, like, oh, I want to make something that's like the things that I like because that's what I like. Which of course
And
changes over time. And
which turns into you, which
right,
turns into this sort of like,
exactly.
okay, now you have developed, so many of us go record to record at the beginning. And that's why A&R just used to be a thing. Like, it used to develop artists.
Yeah.
There'd be no Fleetwood Mac if there couldn't have been, Buckingham Nicks plus this other stuff, plus putting them together. They had to have lots of failures before they had something great happen. Well, that
Right.
doesn't happen as much these days,
Right.
or they just all get put in a boy band and they tell them what to play, you know. Um,
Well, and it's
my
also the
point
music. That's the music business.
exactly, and it is the way it is. Being outside of that is kind of wonderful, even
Yeah.
if you don't. It's a lot harder to pay your bills. It's kind of wonderful because you can make what you want. If you go through albums and you go, well, man, now I'm experimenting with a lot of like slide and soul stuff, and hence the name. And now I'm doing a bunch of roots rock stuff, okay, and now I'm doing some like solo stuff. You think to yourself, I'm all over the place. I have these varied things, but who you are is just an amalgam of all the things that you dig.
Oh yeah.
And leaning into it and being as much yourself as possible, to me, is the most gratifying. Doesn't mean don't think about your audience. Doesn't mean don't whatever. You can think
Right.
about them. But I love what you're saying, and I love how I want to repeat. I want you to repeat what Danny Barnes said, because I honestly think that anybody listening who writes, or anybody who sits up there with a guitar, say it one more time, because I want it in my head too. If there's 10 people at a show and you're playing and they leave.
Well, right, and I'm kind of paraphrasing. I can't remember what he
Yeah,
wrote,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it was basically, if you're playing in a bar and there's 10 people there and you start playing and they all leave, you're not necessarily doing anything wrong. Which is to
Brilliant.
say, you might not be doing something that's going to lead to financial success, but if you're experimenting with different sounds and doing the things you want to do, at some point, the people that like that stuff are going to find you. Now, it might not be enough people to pay your bills, and this is where
Nope.
Danny Barnes says, there's no shame in flipping burgers if it affords you
Nope.
time to practice your banjo.
Damn right.
Yeah.
There's no shame in it. You and I both know musicians who are I know so many musicians who are incredible that don't do it for a living. So
Yeah.
many.
Oh yeah. Me
Incredible.
too. Yeah. Right.
Because they
And
want to be able to play what they want.
right. And I know a lot of people who do it for a living that are not the best at that thing out of all the people I
Yeah.
know. Which is not, again, it's not a slight on those people either. It's
Nope.
like there's so much luck and connections and
I
everything else
know.
involved, and pile that on top of our privilege, it's
Yeah, you put it all together, and it's a very, very strange quilt, I guess. You know, but I really, really love that as just one of those things that could be formative for a younger cat. Or Kate Howard just said, "This is just what I needed to hear. Thank you both." I'm
yeah.
telling you, Kate, if I would have known that, I mean, who knows? Maybe I wasn't able to take it at the beginning too. I had lots of other issues, like I'm a side guy. Nobody wants to hear my songs, and I had to get over that crap too. Still am sometimes. All right, so we're getting closer and closer to the end, and I want to make sure I only have one other question that I really like, which is Larry King says, "What was the first song you remember learning?"
The first
Mine's
song,
embarrassing.
is it?
Oh my God, it's embarrassing. I was 10 years old. I learned. My second song is amazing.
Yeah.
If I could lie
Hmm.
and say my second song, you'd be like, "That's awesome." My first song is "Talk Dirty to Me" by Poison.
Oh,
And
funny.
then my second is "The Wind Cries Mary" by Jimi Hendrix.
Right.
And then I all of a sudden realized one was better than the other.
That's interesting. The thing is, I'm not entirely. I started playing
10.
guitar. I started playing guitar when I was 15. I was a trumpet player since I was little, and my dad was a guitar player, and so he taught me a couple chords on his nylon string. And the thing is, it's one of two songs, and I can't remember which I learned first, but we had some songbooks.
Oh, those were great.
Those were great. And so and with the chord shapes, I
Yep.
would basically just look for like which of these chord shapes are only two fingers. So like the A minor 7, the E minor,
Yeah.
they were just the easier chords to play
Fingers.
because
Yeah.
it was just two fingers. And so I remember that the song Mother and Child Reunion by
Oh
Paul
yeah.
Simon
Yeah.
was one that for whatever reason, I found it, and it was very simple looking. And the other one was Rocky Raccoon,
Oh
um,
yeah.
because
Just four chords.
it's just a circle, and
Yeah.
they're pretty easy chords. And I will say that learning Rocky Raccoon got me my first paid gig technically, because after school I used to go to this coffee shop called Bittersweet, and my friends and I would have coffee and smoke cigarettes indoors, and it was just
Sure.
terrible. And the woman who owned the place, one day I was there, I didn't have enough money for a cup of coffee, and I was like begging her to like front me the cup of coffee. And there was a guitar on the wall, and she said, "Can you play me a song on the guitar, and I'll give you a sandwich and a cup of coffee?" And I was like,
Oh.
"Sure." And so I played Rocky Raccoon, and she gave me a sandwich and a coffee, and that's my first paid gig right there.
Oh, that's so great, man.
But the mother and child reunion story is almost better because uh, I learned it before I ever heard that record, which became one of my favorite records, which is Paul Simon's first solo record. But I was learning it out of this songbook, and I didn't know that song, but I knew how to read music. And so I was reading, I read the melody, I figured it
Yeah.
out, and I was like, yeah. And it's like an E minor, it starts with an E minor. And so in my head, it was sad and it was slow. And
Yeah,
so
somber.
I learned it thinking it was a ballad, and I was at somebody's house after school, and my girlfriend at the time was there, and I was like, "I'm gonna play you guys this song," and I'm like, "With a mother and child,"
Oh my God, this
and
is
I'm playing this
great.
like super slow, and everybody's looking at me really funny. They're like, "Why are you? That's not how the song goes." And I was like,
Yeah.
"What?"
But you
And I
know
was
what's great
so
about that is
embarrassed.
that's like your first taste of arranging, because now, also think about this. Every single time you see a reworking, like somebody said, "Oh, I just saw this movie, and the beginning had this really slow, morose version of Smells Like Teen Spirit with just a
Right.
piano going bing, bing," and it's like, wow, what a neat take on that song. It's like, well, yeah, but what they're also doing
Yeah.
is repurposing a song so they have to pay half as much.
Right. Yeah.
If they get someone else to do the song. So if you are an aspiring, musician, you want to get
Oh
placements,
yeah.
then learn strange cover songs and do your own thing with it and make it as morose and slow and mushmouth as possible.
Totally.
And you will have, a better chance of getting a hit. I sound like an old. This is my portion of the show that's, "Hey kids, get off my lawn."
Sure.
It's like, those kids don't know how to. No. But that's what you were doing with the song, is like you reinterpreted it
Yeah.
before you had ever heard it. So there's something about that probably seeped into your writing, where like, oh, well, I don't have to play it the way this, and I don't have to play it the first way I think it in my head.
Oh yeah.
I
Well,
might write
I
it like a
certainly,
reggae tune, but play it like a rock tune.
yeah. I certainly feel that way about cover songs in general. I'm way more interested in reinterpreting something, partly as an honor, in honor of the cover, especially if it's something I
The
like. Like
greatness of the song.
I'm not going to attempt to do Prince or Aeneas Mitchell or whatever, whoever I'm covering, I'm not going to try to do it as good as they do it because I can't because they
can't.
do it.
Yeah. I had an opportunity once where some kids were doing this show and they said, "Hey, will you come and play with us?" I said, "Sure." I had the night off, and I don't know. They gave me $150 or something. They were good kids, right? And I knew they had some talent, and they were getting some place called the Big Red Barn outside of New Braunfels. I show up and they're shooting a live video.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like, "You're shooting a live video," and they're like, "Oh yeah, man. We're gonna make a whole movie out of this." Blah, 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 blah. This is like the band started. And I was like, "All right, whatever." I said, "What are you guys starting with? What's first on your set list?" And they said, "Sympathy for the Devil." And I looked at them and I just said, "Are you gonna do it better?" Like, what are we gonna do? And like they just looked at me like terrified, and I was like, "I don't know, man. Like, really? Like this is your thing. Like, what are you gonna do with it? Um, and so all of a sudden they came up with some idea where like one kid was gonna play on a bucket or something like that. And I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
you're doing your own thing at least. But it was kind of mean. It was a little old man mean of me. Hey, we're about to go off. I want to say real quick before we go to the online only portion. I want to say big thanks to Austin Music TV for keeping this on the cable channel in Austin every week. I want to say big thanks to Austin CityJams.com. I also want to remind you, everybody, that we do take tips for these shows. I split them with my guest right down the middle, and hopefully what we do is we keep the show going, and maybe Matt and his wife get to have like a nice takeout meal or something. So thank you very much. It's a wonderful thing to do. And Matt the Electrician here, finding out about his stuff. Last week when I was with Betty Sue, I was voguing around it.
Oh, nice.
I was like striking a pose.
Yeah.
Make sure that it's a really good thing to do to follow on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Bands in Town, all the things. I'm sure those links are available at your website.
That is correct.
Because you're a pro. Okay, so as we go off, and we got about 30 seconds, so we'll say goodbye to Austin Music TV, and it'll cut off right in the middle of us talking. But I only ask one question a week, and this is a great question for you, because I already know a lot about your musical tastes that are outside of the sphere of what we do. And I know that you're, kind of a punk fan, hardcore fan. I know that you were into the big skate culture, and so that probably added to your music. But I also know that you're a really big fan of jazz. And sometimes we often talk about, hey, do you remember that album Interplay? And, that was like a couple of weeks ago we were talking about that.
Yeah.
Man, I found Interplay. I forgot about that album when we were talking
So
about
good.
Bill Evans or certain other things. So right off the bat, those are two things. Although a lot of your new music, you have experimented with jazz chords more, and I hear like an augmented seven, or I hear like something that maybe comes from like a bossa nova chords,
Yeah.
kind of creeping into your music. But I like to ask everybody every week, what's their guilty pleasure music? And what I mean by that is like you're almost embarrassed to say that you love this. And a lot of people are like, "I'm not guilty," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine." But what I'm looking for really is, people come on and they'll be like, "I like the Spice Girls," and I'm like blown away, and I'm like, "All right, well, tell me the song you like, and I'll go check it out." And people will come on and they'll say, "I like this," or "I like that." Do you have a guilty pleasure music that people would not expect that you listen to? I will say also, if you're a John Zorn fan, that kind of fits, because John Zorn is some very outside music. It's a lot of free, non-melodic,
Yeah, it's
somewhat atonal.
yeah, that whole world of I just got the new Mr. Bungle album the other day, and it's
Oh, when did it come out? When is new Bungle?
like a month ago or something.
Oh
Yeah,
man, there's
it's a double album.
I'm a huge Bungle fan.
I will warn you that I'm also a huge Bungle fan, and their earlier records are all over the map and very experimental, and there's all sorts of different sounds. This new double album is pretty much just a speed metal record. It's great,
Okay.
but it's just speed metal. Like, so
Cool.
you won't expect You won't expect a lot of like gypsy,
Yeah,
calliope, that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
The,
But
the
it's
the
cool
tons
too.
of influences that went into those albums, and I mean, that was for me big in college because I was like learning about John Zorn and learning about Cobra, and the bass player for Bungle was doing Cobra when I saw John Zorn.
Yeah,
Um,
I went to
and my,
college with those guys.
oh no way,
Yeah, Trevor.
Cobra is.
I did
Oh yeah,
Trevor
Trevor.
Dunn's senior project, his composition project. I played trumpet in.
No way.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a great connection, man.
yeah.
Mark Ribot was in the band too. Mark Ribot
Mm.
of Tom Waits and Elvis Costello and so many other things, and the Rootless Cosmopolitans, which I love. There's a whole world of music there that would be kind of great for you and I to hit people to if they were into it. Don Byron, the
Oh
clarinetist.
man, I have some great Don Byron records. He's so
Love Don
good.
Byron.
Well,
Um,
this is literally the opposite of guilty pleasures, though,
yeah,
because
that's true.
this is like this is the very cool. It's very cool
It's
to know
hip to
about
know these
John
people.
Zorn. It's very hip. It's very hip music. It's very cool music. Um,
Intellectually stimulating, as
yeah,
opposed to this just hits me in the feels.
I would say that for me, the idea of guilty pleasure, like for me, what it entails is if you were driving down the street in your
Yep.
car on a beautiful sunny day and you had your windows down and you came to a red light and there was an attractive person of whatever gender floated your
Going
boat in the
on.
car
Yeah.
next to you, what would cause you to roll up your window? Like, what would
Because
you
you're
be listening
embarrassed.
to?
That's a
Right.
great.
That
That's
you're
a great way to
literally
frame it.
in public, you
Yeah.
would be embarrassed. So, like,
Yeah.
I'm out in public and I'm dressed like I
I mean, I
am.
do love gangster rap.
Sure,
A
right,
lot of it.
and
And
just like that.
I'd feel a little weird,
Well, but that's
dropping n
partially
bombs, which I
right.
would never do.
That's like the opening scene in Office Space, where
Office
Michael
Space.
Bolton,
That's right. That's right. With Michael
David
Bolton.
Herman, yeah,
Yep.
rolls the window down or rolls it up. But like, so for me, I think that if I'm using guilty pleasure to define it that way, because there's lots
Then
of
it's
stuff that I think
definitely not free jazz. It's definitely not John Zorn. It's definitely not these cats.
no, and it's not. There's so many things where I'd be like, yeah, this is who I am. Um, I would say the only thing I'm running through it in my head, and the only thing I can think is the Counting Crows.
Oh, there you go. There you go. And okay, so see, that's perfect. What do you like? You like the melody?
I mean, that one record is just like it's a
The one
pop
with one headlight?
with the what now?
With one headlight?
No, that's the
No, I'm
Wallflowers.
thinking Counter Crows. That's Wallflowers.
Yeah,
Okay, so you think,
the one
oh
with
yeah, yeah,
Mr.
yeah, yeah,
Jones,
yeah.
Mr. Jones and me, and all that. Like, it's just a pop.
Seminal record.
It's a pop smorgasbord, but it came out in like 93 or 94, somewhere in there. And I was living in this house with these total punk rockers, weirdos, artists, visual artists. And these are the people that got me into Zorn.
Oh, okay.
They got me into like Drive Like Jehu and
Mhm.
Pitchfork, and just like all of these like intense duo. Do you ever listen to Duo? It's like Mike Watt and his wife
I
Kira
don't
from
know
Black Flag.
Duo, but I'm thinking of like the Ruins.
I mean, it was just this house was full of so much alt, like out
Wild.
jazz and like out punk
But
and
you listen to
metal.
Counting Crows.
And there was one of my roommates had got the new Counting Crows CD, and it was like, when everybody was home, we would literally put on Cobra or Phantomas or whatever,
Yeah.
and like everyone's like chilling, like going, "This is killer, man."
Yeah.
But when everyone was out of the house, I would put on the Counting Crows record and just sit there in front of the speakers, like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, it's so good." But like, it's embarrassing to think that I would listen to it in front of anybody.
What a great answer. And what a great time I've had with you, Matt. Matt, now that we are off of the, that was a fantastic answer and really made sense and was honest. And great, because you dig it,
I do, yeah.
Um, so I just want to say to everybody, go to matttheelectrician.com. Go follow on all the things. If you're a Spotify person, like it, heart it, share it. Those are the things, because we don't get paid there. We really don't. So that's the only thing you can do there. Make a playlist, share it with your friends, get other people. If you're one person who does that, go to Bandcamp, which is a great place to get.
Yeah,
You do your merch there too. I think your
we got
merch
all
store
sorts
is
of
there.
t-shirts and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Matt's always got. Matt's a vinyl cat too. You still have some vinyl for sale there?
I do. I've got all these little 45s. Look at them,
Oh, great,
like
great, great, great.
tons of them, thousands, not thousands. It's a joke.
You have some.
I have some. I have a few.
And then the Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc. Matt, it's been a pleasure. You have have new music coming out. And I just want everybody to watch closely. Hey, your live stream. Myself, we'll do this real quick too.
Yeah,
Myself, I've decided like everybody like either quit or said this is my last live stream. I
yeah,
don't want to stop, man. People still show up. I'm doing it
yeah,
less. I'm doing it
yeah,
less because I know a lot of people aren't online. I'm trying to give people a heads up, but there's people around the country that don't regularly get to see me and
yeah.
around the other countries.
Oh yeah.
And so I'd rather personally just do it. Are you still doing a live stream or two? Do you have a regular?
I have been. I took there were a few weeks here and there where I had other things pop up and I didn't do it, but I'm sticking around and doing it. I actually am. I did just do one on Sunday where I
Right.
said this is the last one for a little bit, just because
Yeah.
I'm heading out on the road. But but yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like I thought it was a weird thing that like a couple months ago I saw a lot of people, and I think some people just need to have touchstones or posters or whatever. But they would go, well, this is the last live stream, and they put this big
Oh yeah.
poster. And I thought, well, first of all, like we're never this pandemic's going to last the rest of our lifetimes,
Oh yeah.
as far as I am concerned. But so there's that. But also like, yeah, why announce that it's the end? Like just
Hmm.
you can keep doing it. You can keep doing
Yeah.
it.
Why not
And
keep doing it and do it from locations? Like my next month is going to be at the Mucky Duck, and that's the
yeah,
one I'm going to do. And why not? They have great cameras, and I can just shift it to a Tuesday night. And then if I do a band show and there's actually stuff online, I'll call it from here to there, and I'll get all the
yeah,
people who used to come to the show to check it out, and it'll be online, and they can watch it later. And I kind
yeah.
of think that that's a good thing. And I was a fan of your live streams.
Oh,
Um,
thanks.
yeah, I was. And so I'll be back again when you have them again.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to take a few weeks off just because I'll be traveling around and I've booked some outdoor private shows on some Sundays, so I can't do it at the same time. So
Well, best of the family.
yeah, likewise.
Hang on with me. Everybody,
Yeah,
thanks a lot to Matt the Electrician. Thanks everybody for the tips. We appreciate them very much. The info's in there if you want to, throw us a nickel or a dime. And man, that was really, really fun.
thanks for having me, Jeff. Appreciate
I love being had.
it.